Yeah.
Okay, well, call this facilities committee meeting to order. We have myself and Mike Brandt is on the speaker phone. Jack isn't here yet, but we can get started with a quorum. So the first item on the agenda, well, the first thing we have to do is approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Hello.
I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And we're right off to review of the 2021 capital project.
All right, thanks, Dave. I'm going to turn it over to Steve and to John. This is just a review of our current status of the projects we had approved this year. So Steve, are you going to kick this off, or John, are you going to take this one?
I can, Randy. We just wanted to first start with an update on the 2020-2021 capital projects list. If you can recall, it's been a while since this was approved in the spring of 2020 for the projects that take place in the 2020-2021 school year. John and Audrey have created a updated information for you as far as where all of these projects are at. You can see the net difference column is explaining the difference between what was originally requested and what the final costs were of the project. And then in the lower right-hand corner of that document just is a big picture of where are we at with the projects in scope that were approved last spring. John, do you want to call any attention to the committee on any of these particular projects or anything you still are planning on doing by the end of this fiscal year?
Sure, thanks, Steve. The items in light brown are the projects that have been completed in funds adjustments or projected final costs. The items in white are primarily repairs, so those would be ongoing. It's a little bit difficult to see on a projector screen, but so those are maintenance items or emergency repair items. There are a couple projects that have not been completed as of today, and some are underway. And those are also in white. We've even been engaging with BPI for the line 20, digitizing records, really consolidating our plan and configuring what we want to do there. That's quite an undertaking. And with all that's going on this year, we haven't been able to focus 100% on it, but we have engaged with BPI within the past 2 months. We're hoping to move forward on that one. Some of the other items that are underway are the 2 boilers at the high school are up and running as of yesterday. Oven at Prairie Elementary, steamer at the high school are also just about complete. There was a problem with the shipping on the high school steamer. It arrived with a broken part. The 911 buttons, which will be tied to the panic buttons in each school building, and currently working with Johnson Controls to iron out some of the details there. Some of the intricacies on that project involve communicating out with some of the older equipment that we have in that, especially in the middle school. That our challenges at the middle school because of the older dialing equipment. But I continue to work with Johnson Controls on that project. And the Bethel security project is currently underway, almost done. We've moved cameras and added card access components to this building. So it's pretty much an update as far as this year. Questions?
Yeah, just to say as a reminder to the committee, anything that is not spent this fiscal year in Fund 41 remains in Fund 41 and is just part of the balance moving forward into the next fiscal year. So does anybody have any questions for John on this list, or where any of the, or questions about where any of these projects are at?
I just wanted to ask a quick question. Sometimes in location, you had HS and sometimes WHS. I assume those are both high school?
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, I was just making sure nothing, I was just seeing if there wasn't anything on Heritage. I didn't. And then on your final net difference, it looks like, if I'm figuring this right, we came in 58,000 under budget of what you thought the initial cost would be?
Sure, that's where we are today because some of the emergency items haven't been, haven't either
Didn't
been
go.
needed or have been purchased, so
Okay,
those are unspent dollars.
So as Steve said, those will just remain in Fund 41 and they'll carry over.
any other questions? And ready to go into the maintenance and operations budget for next year.
And this is kind of the whole. What part of this do you want to cover, Steve and John? This is obviously a lot of small print and it really just kind of pulled it up and went to the last page.
Sure, I'll just mention that one of the things that John approached Diane and I on was his interest in replacing a vehicle. And what we shared with John is that vehicles, according to the DPI, cannot be purchased from Fund 41, the Capital Projects Fund, and that a vehicle would have to be purchased out of the district's general fund maintenance. And we asked John and Audrey to work together to provide some information to the committee as to whether or not we believe that we would have funds available this spring to move ahead with that vehicle purchase. And so like Randy mentioned in the previous agenda item, those funds will remain in Fund 41. Those cannot be moved, for a vehicle or moved to a different fund. But any funds remaining in Fund 10 could be allocated towards a vehicle if the committee sees so fit to do so. So I was going to ask John to just take a minute and explain the rationale for the vehicle request and which vehicle is being replaced and kind of the thinking behind, replacing a vehicle still this spring. Is that okay, John?
And this spreadsheet, Steve, just is really illustrative that there are dollars available in Fund 10 for the facility maintenance budget, not Fund 41, but Fund 10 that would allow for this cost.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
So we want to talk about kind of the rationale for the need. John, that would be helpful.
This is to look to replace the 2007 Chevy that underwent a cracked frame over the winter. The vehicle is old and very worn, very used. And it's seen better days. So we're looking to replace that one with the cracked frame.
And what are you replacing it with or hoping to replace it with and capabilities?
It would be similar to the Ford fleet vehicles we have now.
Is this a snowplow or what, is that what you use it
Or
for?
snowplow vehicle, that's correct. So we were out of service with the snowplow vehicle from January.
This is a pickup truck that you can use for maintenance if you also put a plow attachment to it. Is that right?
That's correct.
And just as a reminder, due to the size of a vehicle purchase, it would have to be approved by the school board. Our policy on purchasing is anything that's $25,000 or more would have to go in front of the school board for a purchase. So the first question is whether the committee would support moving forward with that type of an action this spring. If yes, John will need to put information together for the next school board meeting. So this isn't something administration has the ability to move forward with really either way. It's above the purchasing policy limit. So we're really looking for your feedback as to moving ahead with this concept, whether you would like to see John bring this forward to a school board meeting, whether you would like to see a delay for a little bit until we can be a little further on in the budget process this spring. Just looking for your feedback at this point is where you'd want to go with this one.
Do we have the funds?
Yeah, we have the dollars, right, Steve?
So what's on the screen shows that as of right now, if you project it forward, there would be funds available to reallocate towards the vehicle. So basically that writing that's at the bottom that says end of report underneath that is Audrey and John's work to go through and basically show that the new available balance that they show would be $61,000. and that those funds, a portion of those funds, 51,000 of the 61, they're requesting to bring forward to move towards a vehicle. So it would not require district funds from any other source. It would just require the board to approve the use of $51,000 in that manner, basically.
That leaves you sufficient dollars to get through the rest of the year for what you need. The auditor shaking their head. So to your question, Jack, yes, there are dollars there through reallocation in John's budget for end of the year funds.
So in here, at the end, I'm seeing 55,000 carryover, right?
Yep, you're at, you have 1920 carryovers, 55,000. And then you have a new available balance of 61, the truck is 51, is that right?
Yep.
See,
Yeah.
okay.
So that still leaves a small balance there for other things that may come up that are funds that are needed for. A lot of things in John's world have also been COVID related, so we've been able to code them appropriately and use some of the federal dollars and others for that.
I would say move forward.
So do we want to make a motion to
We would need a
recommend?
motion to forward this to the board.
Is there a motion to recommend moving forward with the purchase of the vehicle from the unencumbered balance of Fund 10?
So moved.
We'll give Mike the second.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the motion passes.
All right, is that all you needed from that item, Steve and John?
Yep.
All right, awesome.
So now we're looking at the capital projects for next year.
So typically in March and April, we bring forward during this time frame to the facility committee a recommended list of capital projects for the following fiscal year. We request feedback from the facility committee, make any modifications per your request, and then move this forward at the next available board meeting to request approval. What we're referring to again is our District Fund 41, our capital projects account. You saw a very similar, format from John for the projects that were approved for this current school year. What you see in front of you is a set of requested projects for the 2021-22 school year. These projects basically line up with the annual budget for Fund 41 for capital projects. I'm going to ask John to jump in and just talk through how these projects were prioritized, what type of input he received, and then just walk through any questions that any of the committee members might have. So are you able to take that, John?
Yeah, no problem. So we've been working with CRM ASC1, they're a refrigeration and cooking equipment provider with a preventive maintenance program that was approved by the facility committee sometime last year. And they help us identify which items are out of age, out of support, and need to be replaced or dying, or could cause us issues if something catastrophic happens to a piece of equipment. So they've been a great partner with helping us identify pieces of equipment. One of the items is the water heater at Arboretum School. And I can just go down the list, and to Steve's point, the prioritization of these items mostly come from the emergent needs that we see out in the buildings as we are working in the buildings. For example, the carpeting and so forth.
Are some of these coming off the 20-year maintenance plan, and some of these are a blend of things that you're seeing as immediate needs that need attention?
Yeah, most are the immediate needs. We still have not been able to completely immerse ourselves in the facilities maintenance plan to identify those things because we have too many things that are right in front of us.
Right.
So we've gone down, as we go down the list, the school is in the second column. Many of the items are below the 5,000 threshold, so pretty easy for us to take care of. One item I have on row 8 is a generator for Bethel. That one can be up for discussion from the committee if you guys want to talk about what the need would be for that as we look at this building as an emergency operations center and hosting our, one of our our main data centers here in this building. And how,
I think that's been a big shift because we've kind of, as we've updated our computer closet out here, this is kind of the backup to the high school for the data center. Is that accurate?
that's correct, right? So not only having UPS as the uninterruptible power supplies in the data center, which are there, but having this building stay online if we were to lose power in the village. I think it'll be critical if we have a situation in town where we lose power in this building, if we're to gather here for an emergency.
Do we have a generator out here right now? Or no? Okay, so this would be a new equipment.
Correct. Correct. So that's a placeholder. I've contacted some generator vendors and I haven't been able to narrow down the exact price on that yet.
I was gonna say, is that the generator and the install? Because
You're going to put in transfer switches and whatever.
This is definitely not an exact price. I'm going off of a previous building that I did was about twice the size of this building, and that was $100,000. So
Yeah.
it's a complete estimate and up for discussion.
Yep.
The
Is it-
paving of, go ahead, Jeff.
This is diesel or natural gas.
I'm not sure if diesel or propane would be the way to go. I'd have to get that recommendation.
What size generator you're looking at?
I don't know. I don't have a number.
I think that's something you just got to look into.
It'd be the ratings.
And this is kind of one that's highlighted just to say, we would like to allocate some funds to it, but we're in the investigation stage as far as what it needs to be.
Correct, open for discussion for sure. Yeah. The Bethel Parking Lot is in probably the worst shape of all of our buildings in the district, so that's on there. We need to validate the estimate on that as well. Another reason that one's highlighted, we talked about potentially expanding this building's parking areas with a referendum, if we do that someday. And that would be out to the west side of the building, keeping the east side of the building more of a green space for the offices there. This does not include parking lot expansion, just repaving what we have. Just keep that in mind. The other grounds items, some doors and repair items. Please stop me if you want to discuss any of the items. So we get to the colored items at the bottom. Men's locker rooms at the pool. My intent is to do the ladies' locker rooms. Replace the lockers in there ASAP.
So on most of our playgrounds, don't they have like a rubber stuff?
It's not rubber, it's a wood fibers, wood.
So that would be replacing those wood fiber? You got cracks in
Which line are you on, yeah?
playground crack fill.
Oh, that would be like,
Is that just replacing?
That would be
what we've
asphalt.
already
that's
got?
the asphalt.
so last year we did parking lots. There are also asphalt based playgrounds, for example, at Prairie and Harvard and Cracks.
I'm a little surprised there's nothing for Heritage this year, which is rare. Is that intentional due to potential referendums or what?
So I would say that has come into my mind that we can absolutely get the estimates for Heritage to see what's going to be. It's not in the worst shape in the district.
Well, I mean, I remember during our walkthrough, some of the horrifying electrical, but again, if we're considering a referendum within 1 to 2 years, it doesn't make sense to drop the funds to do anything.
I think until you get some firm decisions on what we're gonna do, it's probably, I don't think there's anything emerging right now that you're feeling like that these are taking some priority.
Correct. I've walked every playground, and that was my feeling too, Randy, is I really can't justify doing Heritage today.
The one that I asked to be on here was the remodel of one of the classrooms at the middle school. And even if we do go ahead and are doing referendums middle school wise, we are lacking. We're kind of making a classroom work for a science room right now. It doesn't necessarily have all the necessary pieces in it. Some of the water, some of the power that it needs. So this is a piece that a science teacher talked to me about. I thought it made some sense to even if we utilize the building as a high school or something in the future, it'll make a additional science space, et cetera, but for 22,000 to improve that for better instructional use seems appropriate.
Well, I also think even if you went with the last referendum we talked about, you're not doing the middle school for almost 4 years. So it's still a long
me, it
period of
makes
time
sense.
to be using it as a middle school.
So are you walk behind the snow blowers? Are those replacements or are those additional?
Replacements. Quite a few of our single stage snow blowers are 15 to 20 years old and needing constant repair, or we can't repair them anymore. We can't get parts for certain equipment in the snow blower. So 6 is a start. I'd probably ask for the same amount next year as well.
How many do you have?
2 at each building. 1 at the smaller buildings and then a rider as well. Some kind of rider, whether a tractor or a lawn tractor.
Can I ask a question? Maybe Christie even knows the answer to this one. What, the men's locker room at the pool, are we planning to do the women's then next year?
It's on right now.
That's on right now,
Yeah.
okay.
So these are your recommendations for the projects for this coming fiscal year.
Correct. So, and you're right, Randy, with line 27, the middle school science room, they want to use that room right now. It wouldn't be solely for a high school situation.
Right, it's an immediate thing that would help them with some of the science instruction. So I think it makes sense.
You need a motion for this?
We do.
Make the motion to pursue as presented.
Is there a second, Mike?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear really.
The motion was to recommend this to the full board as presented with the 3 yellow ones, obviously still need final prices to be approved.
I guess I had a couple questions, but I can second.
No, go ahead.
Sure, I mean, I think overall I had a couple questions on a few. I know Jack was asking about the snow blowers and such there. Do we have a method by which we procure those? Because I was in the market recently for purchasing them and I was kind of surprised that some local sources were more expensive than others. So do we have a way by which we actually go about getting those, that's getting a good price for the things we're getting? John, you can speak to that just briefly, I'd appreciate it.
Our first approach is to look for CISA vendors, and I can let Audrey expand on any of that for us.
The price that we were quoted for the snow blowers are actually through local Waunakee power equipment. And they are providing us with contracted CISA pricing to give us the best deal. We do have to commit to them this spring to get them ordered in order to get them in the fall. That's one of the reasons we need approval on that.
Could you hear that, Mike?
No.
Right. So basically, we go through a local provider who guarantees us the CISA quoted prices that we have that are competitively situated so that we are getting the pricing as per those agreements.
What local provider?
Which one were you looking at?
We're using Waunakee power equipment.
Waunakee Power Equipment, I think they're the one off of Division Street.
Okay. I always like asking the one I know, because to make sure I don't have any conflict when we do anything.
Yeah.
And the only other question I had is not necessarily because I don't know the answer but I assume that people may be watching this with large budgets, things like that. Can either Steve or John just kind of speak to why you look at the sticker price for something like carpeting a classroom and something like $7,000 really stands out? When I can tell you, I was in one of those classrooms within the last year or so. You look at it and you go, oh, this seems fine. And to see $7,000 for a classroom recarpeting seems like a lot. So if you could speak to why that cost is the way it is, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's the commercial grade carpet, and it's carpet squares. Next, maybe you haven't been to rooms specifically on the list. For example, the Arboretum music room, there's duct tape on the floor holding it together. So as to the cost, we definitely look at multiple vendors, and we can't always stay with the local vendor. I think because of cost, we should go with our best deal as long as the product we're getting is apples to apples on the quality. So we're looking to have 15-year carpet usually.
Did you hear that okay, Mike?
Yeah, I can hear that. I just, ever since, I think last year, we had a capital improvement line for replacing the floor. I think it was in the Arboretum. It wasn't the cafeteria, but the kitchen. And I vividly remember that because I remember standing in that kitchen like 2 weeks prior to the vote on that. And I looked out and I don't know if I could tell you what was wrong with it. And someone walking in there could say, well, you're spending $20,000 on a floor that looks fine. And I just want everyone to feel, I'd like everyone to know why we're doing what we're doing and be aware of that rather than just we're willy-nilly throwing public money into something because it's on an Excel spreadsheet somewhere.
Yeah.
That's all.
And I think for the items that you're seeing tonight, that was kind of the question we started off with. Most of these are not being pulled from that 20-year spreadsheet. These are ones that John, working with his staff, have identified as immediate higher needs that we need to address for specific reasons. So I'm assuming, like John, the carpeting that you're identifying is the ones that have the trip hazards, that have the things that are already duct taped down, that we just need to expedite and move forward as part of the process.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. I knew that was your answer. I just wanted to hear you guys say it. Thank you.
And Mike, to your point on the Arboretum kitchen floor, you're exactly right. And after I inspected that floor myself, I removed it from the list.
I will make one correction. I believe we're either working with Waunakee Power Equipment on the snow blowers or Carl F. Stocks. That's who we've been dealing with on it, small type of equipment like that. We've been trying to keep it local and they are providing it.
Right,
attractive
thank you.
prices.
Thank you, Audrey. All right. Any other questions with regards to the list for the coming year?
Well, then we have a motion second already. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And the motion passes. Next is our maintenance staffing.
This was an item that was in front of the board, I believe this fall or early winter, and was asked to be brought back with further consideration. So I know Steve and John, you've had a few conversations about it, and I believe, John, you were going to kind of represent it to the committee tonight. Is that right?
Sure. So, like Randy said, this is data that is not unfamiliar to you. We're just bringing it back for your awareness. We have Mr. Helmbrand retiring in July, and we'll post that position May 3rd. That's the recommendation from the HR on the date. I'd like to get somebody in here. But that's as soon as we get somebody in here to start cross-training with Rich's vast knowledge. The custodial supervisor budget request was still out there, which was also deferred, as you can see it. And the cost amount for that FTE is on consideration. Underneath that is custodial staffing, our current custodial staffing. The numbers in parentheses are FTE short. Questions on that bit?
How long have these been posted? For your 8.5?
About a year, I think. They've been hiring as they had applicants, and I know Brian's gone through not only our traditional pieces, he's gone out on Indeed. I think the challenge is even, and you can answer this too, John, is that they've held interviews and people just aren't showing up.
For the interviews?
Correct.
So they'll accept an interview and then so it's been a challenge to fill. So I know you've been looking at how you can be more efficient to even work around any of the shortages we have on staff.
Absolutely. Some of the efficiencies we can gain are through equipment, and I've also been working with the HR department on how to advertise to our full extent. Those positions have been open since I've been here, and actually we had an interview today. It was great, and hopefully you will move back from Florida and take the position. And that's what we're up against.
So has it been harder through the COVID to bring custodial staff in, or is?
Not due to, I would say not due to COVID. I would say there are other challenges in the realm of pay.
Didn't we go through the QTI study? Did that have some salaries, custodial?
When you went back to, like, we go back to the QTI study from even like a couple of years ago, at that point, our custodial maintenance salaries were competitive. And what has since happened is the market has shifted. People have kind of upped all of theirs. And right now our custodial, and that's a piece that Brian will be bringing back to the HR committee, I believe, starting next week, is just to show kind of where our comparables are. And so for custodians now, they have fallen. And that's part of the, so even with the increases that we've been able to give and adjustments, there's been other adjustments in the market that have gone, that have escalated some of those costs.
Our top ends are still higher than surrounding districts, so the retention aren't in our favor that way.
Yeah.
Just start the way, just part of the job.
So that's part of what's in front of HR moving forward.
Do you see that, I can see with the COVID, you want more cleaning staff in your businesses and so forth. So that could be driving up the cost. Do you think that's do you have any indication that they could level off?
Don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, Jeff. There's definitely pieces where you're right. There could have been places that were kind of upping their custodial pieces to address some of the COVID aspects, but I don't know how that'll be coming out of the pandemic. But the shortage of trying to hire custodians isn't a new issue. It was an issue we had even prior to the pandemic, but trying to keep, maintain, and even finding the quality folks to come in and interview. So that's been part of the challenge.
Well, what you were saying too, though, is with the QTI study that we did several years ago, we were in the
Changed. Yeah,
ballpark.
that market level has definitely changed. And one of the things I know Brian's working on is now that we have, Steve, you can probably address this a little bit more specifically. He's using some of the Forecast 5 modeling to be able to do the comparisons to other districts around, to be able to compare where we're at salary wise.
Correct.
Which we didn't have when we had some of the QTI pieces before. So that's much more active and accessible to us.
So one of the impacts to help work around that is, again, newer technology, newer equipment, and efficiencies. The partner that we are working with now, Hilliard, they've been fantastic at showing us efficiencies that we can bring to the district. A lot of it has to do with equipment. As you can see there in the Hilliard CCAP portion of the screen there, they're providing this for free. We buy their chemicals. It's currently underway. They've actually provided us a great report to show us that if we spend X on cordless battery backpack vacuums, we can save up to 5 full-time positions just in time savings. Take that with a grain of salt, but it's a saving because of the cumbersome uprights and cords that we currently have, but antiquated equipment. Anybody have questions on the Hilliard partnership?
So what would something like that cost to replace the vacuums?
30?
Probably like 60.
I don't have the number in front
That's
of me.
fine.
Audrey will find it while we're back. Why don't you talk about the other items while she's looking for that?
Okay, just an update then on our summer grounds, limited term employees, we have 3 positions hired. 2 are new folks and 1 will be returning to us. So I've also worked with HR to up the returning salary for people that return to the district year over year.
Is that all you needed this week?
We're still looking for more.
How many are you looking for?
We usually have 4 to 5, I believe, so I would hire 1 to 2.
I'm not sure you could hear all that, Mike, but we're adding some additional people for the summer, summer crew. We're still looking for a few people. And the question, the other was, what's the cost of those backpack vacuums? That's a piece Audrey's looking up right now.
So we,
Yeah, I heard all that, thank you.
All right, super.
we looked at the high school first, and if we were to outfit every custodian assigned there, it's $8,100 for 10 new backpack vacuums. So then if you carry that forward with the rest of the district, we do have some cordless backpacks, but we're looking at adjusting them and seeing where they would fit best. We're not eliminating everything we have, so it's like a reconfiguration of the equipment. The high school is the building that needs the most efficiencies to be gained. So that's the building we're going to focus on first. We're also looking at the upright vacuums, and those average about $900 a piece to go to a battery-powered cordless vacuum that does have a corded option, which has been one of the issues that a battery-powered upright does not have the required suction during the winter with the sand, the salt, and all that. So it's a good melding, and all the pricing are based through CISA vendors that I've quoted them through.
So isn't that something that if you can save manpower, you might want to put into your budget this year?
We're looking at using our expense budgeting to pay for those.
We're actually looking at moving forward with some of those pieces. So they didn't fall on the Fund 41 request, but they will fall on other requests that don't necessarily need to come through here. But that's a piece that we're looking at, making some of those equipment purchases to help mitigate some of the employment costs.
And John, we're looking to bring that back as the follow-up to the next time the committee meets, correct?
Can you say it again, please, Steve?
We're looking to bring that information back as a follow-up to this agenda item the next time the committee meets, correct?
We could potentially incur those costs now and create efficiencies now. That if we needed to wait, that would be fine. Just through conversations with Diane and Audrey, we would like to do it as soon as possible. And I don't know the restrictions.
You and I had talked about some of the things just with regards to even our COVID expenses, that some of these could be tied into there potentially, but also looking at, are there other funds that you were looking at to utilize for this?
I think just the shifting of the overall cleaning the COVID funds.
Yeah.
Well, if you get eight and a half custodians short,
right,
and you're telling us that you can get these cordless vacuums and save 5 FTEs, you know, which going conservatively, you might be able to save 4. Right. So now you've just freed up the requirements or needs for custodial staff. So I don't see why we wouldn't do it.
I think that's where we're at, Jack, because I think we're just gonna, we'll move ahead with those based on some of those aspects of.
Right, this is information for you guys just to have awareness of that. This is our plan. Yep.
Any other questions on staffing? I don't think there's anything actionable there. No. So then the final thing is about district facility use by non-school and community.
Let me kick this off, and then we have Christy is here from the pool, and Aaron's here who manages all of our spaces. Couple things that we brought in front of you tonight. One of them is a document called High Frequency Outside User Groups. This is just, and we'll touch base on this. These are generally the groups that use our facilities throughout the year. So when you're looking at which groups use all of our schools, these are the ones that utilize it. This is not a list of everybody that's going to use it this spring and summer, but it's definitely a list. It just gives you a kind of a big picture of who utilizes our schools over time. And then the other document, and we'll bounce between these two, is the one that's just talking about, when we look at our programs and things that our staff hosts. It's a lot of different camps, and many of them are sports camps that are all run through our school district budgets here. If you remember a few years back, we've shifted all those dollars here per the district audit. And so we control all the funds that come in, collect the funds come in, and also paying out. So these are really programs that are hosted by our staff and by the district. So the big question we have in front of us tonight is, how do we want to move forward with use of our facilities at this point in the COVID situation, moving into spring and moving into summer? And I think there's really three different kind of entities that we need to talk about. One is the pool, which is why Christy's here, because that's definitely a part of our program. It's definitely a part of things that we operate and we offer not only to our students, but also to community. The second part is those camps and those things that we support as a district for, again, our students, managed and run by our staff. And then the third entity are those outside groups that want to use our facilities. I mean, from a support standpoint of partnerships we have with the village as they run things like T-ball games and Prairie's playground, to using the track behind Heritage, potentially using some of our spaces in school, all the way up to like the Wave, using the pool at the high school, and then things like driver's ed, using a classroom, and then obviously many different club sports that want to have access to our facility. So we have a perspective on what we feel we can manage, but we wanted to talk through some of these things with you. Ideally tonight, we'd like to have a recommendation coming out of this committee that we could take to the board on April 12th, that at least gives us direction here for the next number of months. So with that, Aaron, where's our best place? Maybe I start with the pool. I don't like start there, Christy.
Okay.
And I think that from the conversation that we've had, you kind of have multiple tiers. You have those things like lap swimmers. You have those things like the exercise group that comes in our morning. Those are kind of community-based pieces. Then we have our swim teams that utilize the pool. And I know a piece that you've been looking at is how to kind of venture into the place of swimming lessons. I know a limiting factor up until recently has been getting lifeguards trained because of just all the COVID protocols of how to do that. And then obviously like the Wave and all of those pieces. So why don't we just talk through a little bit of kind of what you see as some things that are manageable. And as Christy and I talked, we want to make sure that we're doing things in a manner that we can kind of learn, become more comfortable with, and then continue to reopen. The pool has a lot of latitude per the public health orders, but it's also a place where you run into situations where you're not masked in the pool. So that becomes just a piece that we want to talk through here. So Christy, I'll let you kind of walk through what your thoughts are and kind of what our steps might be so that we can consider that.
Okay. I think first off, swimming lessons, I would really like to get back into offering a Learn to Swim program, something yet this spring, I hope. And then we do traditionally have offered a very large summer school Learn to Swim program that we hope to be able to continue to do. The challenge I'm running into is public health kind of has given us the lane to deliver our lessons however we see fit. Their language is, while you're actively swimming, you do not need to be 6 feet apart. You also should not be wearing a mask in the pool. So one option to offer swimming lessons is our traditional system of swimming lessons, our 16, 17, 18-year-olds, high school students teaching, physically supporting learners or non-swimmers in the water face-to-face. The negative we can run into with that is if we have a high school student who becomes COVID positive, we have just created numerous elementary age students that are close contacts. A way to maybe slowly get back into swimming lessons would be to offer a session where we ask every swimmer, and I would like to focus on learners because I think they need water safety right now before summer, as opposed to the older kids who are just fine tuning their strokes, to ask every learner to provide a support parent in the water. So obviously communicating this up front, but if I have a first grader who's a non-swimmer, I need to physically be in the water with that student. And then my staff would teach on deck with a mask so that they're not physically handling any swimmers. I don't know, that's not, other facilities have run lessons that way. It's not overly popular. We're not going to create waiting lists with that system. But I think that we will capture some folks that have a vested interest in getting their kids in the water and reintroducing lessons. My thoughts on summer school with kind of the unknowns would be to perhaps set it up in that same fashion, because it's really easy to add more swimmers. It's really easy to transition into a traditional style of lessons, but it's hard to go back. I can't take registrations and then take them away. It makes it more difficult. But for starters, if we do utilize that delivery method of lessons, I think my staff need a session of practice. They haven't taught lessons in a year, and they've certainly never taught to the parents who are then in the water supporting the children. That's kind of my thought for now. I've been on some various public health meetings, and my staff very much can be in the water face to face with the swimmers, but they also have stated if you can have stricter policy to ensure the safety of your staff, ensure the safety of your participants.
So let's kind of walk through these step by, so we can kind of get the whole picture.
Oh,
So your
okay.
first piece is you're looking at wanting to do an introductory swimming lessons this spring, and then offering the summer school swim, given the parameters that you just talked about and the safety protocols that we've read up. The second piece, let's just talk about like the lap swimmers and the exercise program.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on the community coming in for those type of programs? And what's your ability to manage those and any concerns?
Sure. We've been open for high school lap swimming through an online registration process. There's no fee associated with these high school students right now. So by utilizing that same online registration system or a type of online registration system, we're going to know who's coming in, when they're coming, we're assigning the lanes. Again, public health has really given us a lot of freedom. We could essentially open as we used to be, based on 150 inside without food, and while you're actively swimming, you don't need to be 6 feet apart. My worry about that is we would have a really difficult time contact tracing if we were to have a positive. And I have concerns about people being unmasked at the edge of the pool during recovery periods where they're heavy breathing. How we're doing it with the high school students is we just open up for 16 people at a time. We have an 8-lane pool, so we take 16 reservations. One starts in the shallow end, one starts in the deep end, and they just have these brief passes within the lane, but they always start and end at their home base. So they're not on top of each other at the end of the pool. I think that's manageable for the general public. Starting with 16, prior to the pandemic, there would be days we would have 20 people come in between our entire morning of drop-in, and there'd be days where we'd have 50 people come in. It was just a drop-in, and it was whatever worked for them. So by doing it this way, we're in control. We know who's coming, who's going, we can contact trace. The challenge is the money. We used to sell memberships and or take cash. I don't think we should sell memberships right now, because people won't get to come whenever they wanted like they used to. So I think a fair daily fee assigned to each day you register to swim would be manageable for us. through online ideally. And then perhaps going forward when things loosen up and we can go back to a drop-in. Possibly going cashless and having some sort of a credit card reader on site so we can just eliminate that. It's a good time to kind of make that transition. The club.
Let's start with, let's go back to the, like the exercise group, because I know that's, is
We,
that one?
we kind of treat them as lap swimmers.
Alright.
We just, they kind of come in at 7 o'clock, 7 to 8 o'clock or whatever. And we move lane lines and provide equipment. That's another piece that I have met with Annie and, you know, providing equipment is tricky because equipment needs to be sanitized. But through our RegWorks online registration, we can provide the space for the aquasize ladies and the space for the lap swimmers, and I think we can manage it pretty well. It just won't be come when it's convenient for you. You're just gonna have to, you know, do the online sign up piece.
So that'd be the same as relaxing your safety. So that just kind of clarifies that. So we talked about swimming lessons, we talked about the lap swimmers and the exercise group. And the third group that we really, I know that you've been getting requests from is the Waunakee Wave, which is the local swim floor. So now that's quite a few people. And then
Right.
what you and I talked about was one, management of that, as far as our guides, et cetera. And then just trying to look at the timing aspect. So just give your thoughts
Right.
on that, being able to support that either now or at some point in the future, then potentially then that.
You know, as high school girls season in the fall, you know, fall and the spring or whatever is winding down, state is a week from yesterday. We will have more evening hours freed up because we won't be spreading out, you know, the high school practices for so long. So I think from a pool space standpoint, it's definitely manageable. As far as that organization goes, you know, I think we would want to discuss, you know, are we going to tell them how many people they can have, or are we going to ask them to present a plan and we will say yes or no? Public health, as far as pools and lifeguards, they want us having 2 staff on at all times. One who's actually physically serving as the lifeguard, scanning the pool, and the other individual who would be managing any people coming and going, assigning lanes, that person's making sure people are wearing masks on deck, making sure people are being 6 feet apart on deck. So that would be something with the wave. Is that something that we as the school district would staff to kind of watch and make sure that they're following the procedures, or task them with assigning a volunteer to do that job, or a coach, or whatever the case may be.
And from my perspective, we'd have them write something up. If we were going to open it up to the wave, they would have to put forth a written plan, just like we require from all of our other activities. What that their specific
No,
protocols.
I
that you read
guess,
it out there.
you know, when you look at this, you know, our purpose here is to get these kids back in school.
Yep.
And we've got a lot of anxiety with different people for whatever reason. I would almost submit there's only 8 weeks, 7 or 8 weeks left. That we get through the educational, and then in June, you know, the vaccine is going to be readily available on Monday to anybody. You know, we're slowly opening up and moving forward. I would submit that we'd open up our pool, you know, right at the end of school. And
Once school's
once school's
we get
done,
into summer, then
then-
allowing Christie the opportunity to kind of open up as she feels she's able.
that's what I would submit.
Well,
I
like
know
it's
one of the
a-
things you did mention is you'd like to try and do some swimming lessons this spring as really a warm up and a training for your staff. So that would be a piece that. I think
But that would be a
good.
small group. How many
Right.
kids are you talking about? 10, 15?
I mean,
in your,
If you are all agreeable to allowing me to do it, and you know, if we all agree with our delivery, I like the idea of the parents in the water, at least for now.
Mhm.
You know, these high school kids aren't vaccinated, they may or may not get vaccinated. So it would be maybe 15, 3 different classes per block. I'm proposing on Sunday, so we wouldn't be interfering with other other high school groups coming and going. It would just be swimming lessons, and we have always done swimming lessons on Sundays historically. But then my staff would be masked and on the deck, not physically assisting any children.
Guess if you were gonna formulate that as kind of a motion, Jack, I would say that to allow the pool to more fully open once school is out, with the exception of being able to allow Christy to offer some swimming lesson opportunities for some of her learners as her staff are there. Is that what you're asking?
I would, I would even keep the swimming lessons out of it. I know you want to train your staff and so forth, but if there was maybe 10, I don't know how many staff you have. If you had enough kids to give your staff the opportunity so they could, go into the summer with some knowledge. Because I think a lot of this stuff is going to start opening up. And, we're seeing that. It just, June and July is probably when things are really going to get a lot better than what we know today.
Sure.
So I'd err on the side of caution right now so that, we don't lose any of our students in the next 8 weeks or minimize that.
I understand.
I guess I would just let us consider kind of each one of, let's do the pool by itself. So I
Okay.
guess kind of, if we were going to make a recommendation to the board for April 12th, what else would, that's Jack's kind of your thoughts. Dave, Mike, do you have some thoughts on the pool?
Yeah, thank you, Randy. Jack, I think I'm 100% right there with you. If you make the motion, I'll second it. I understand people saying to a certain extent, like, this is a public facility, we should have access to it, but we also have a public responsibility to it. I'll be totally honest, we've gotten lots of angry emails and messages of a variety of things for the last year and a half, but above and beyond, the most abusive messages I have gotten from anyone in the public have been about the pool, which surprises me. And I guess my overall take is that if that's the kind of conduct we're getting as school board representatives about whether or not we allow people to use a pool, I don't trust said individuals from following rules we put forth. So if we have agencies like the WAVE and other groups and classes that we're working with, we can trust because we can require them to do certain things, but individuals that are then going to be in there, I have a lot of caution about that, especially since this is a cost for us and it's putting potentially students at risk or just creating a lot that we have to monitor. When, again, I love Jack's lines that our primary thing we're always supposed to be doing here is education. So let's make education go first and then worry about everything else once it's a little bit safer. That's all.
So what I hear, what you're saying, Mike, and I think what Jack was saying was you'd hold on everything that's extra other than for like our programs, meaning our swim team right now. After that's done, we would just kind of pause everything till after school is out. Is that really what you were saying?
That's what I.
Yeah, I agree with Jack.
What does that do for your employees? That's my other thing.
That adds a little bit of a struggle because they really, they have 0 hours. And they're going to go find other employment. And then I won't have employees to offer a program in the summer. A second to that is we've been offering opportunity for high school students since September to come in and lap swim. We offered 2 blocks per, afternoon, evening, after school, around high school practice, whatever the case may be. High school students only. We did just put out some communication to potentially offer that to some staff as well, just through the staff wellness committee. Would that be something, since we've been doing it since September, that we could continue?
I think we continue that, continue our school programs the way we've continued them. But opening it up, I think,
what Jack, I think you're saying is if there's an open swim lap time for students, continue to do that. If there's staff who want to do it as part of our wellness program, which we've allowed them to use like our wellness center, similarly. But all the other programs officially, we would just let them, we would wait till after school.
The thing I'm looking at this though is that this is about our students, because your staff is our students, right? And if it's about safety and making sure we don't put our education at risk. What if we just said in order for it to be a training thing, that you can open up this Sunday thing? Because again, it's internal. This isn't an external group coming in. This is just us.
Well,
And then, yeah, but then allow the sign up to be Waunakee students.
But
However many Waunakee students sign up, that's how many classes you can run. If they're from outside the district, we don't do outside the district. Does that make sense?
it does.
I mean, the vast majority of your students are going to be in the district and normal, in a normal
Overwhelmingly.
year, would all be
Overwhelmingly
inside
are.
Waunakee.
Mhm.
So we're really not opening up to anybody.
And my thoughts that, just to mitigate any risk to anyone else were every learner has their own support parent from their own house. They're 6 feet apart, their own area in the pool, and the staff is teaching from the deck. So my staff are not touching anyone. We would sanitize equipment between users.
So what are you doing with your staff right now?
Not as much as I would like, we offer a lifeguard PE class, so I bring somebody in to lifeguard for that, and that's, a handful of hours per week. High school practice, because what used to be a 2-hour practice is now a 3.5 or 4-hour practice because we spread out. And that's been happening since the boys season in December.
So your staff is guarding for, okay. I can go along with that.
so
So
what were you saying, Dave?
So the motion would be, we still don't allow for outside groups until the end of, possibly at the end of the school year, it would be reconsidered. And that the Sunday training program for Waunakee students only
Right.
would be the one
You're
that,
talking
the
about
learning would
like
be allowed.
the lap swimming with Waunakee High
Talking
School?
about learn to
Or are
swim.
you talking
Learn to
about
swim.
learn?
The
to
learning
swim?
to swim,
The learn to
So
Would be
swimming
allowed.
lessons limited to Waunakee
right,
residents.
right.
Waunakee students, elementary.
Waunakee School District, yes.
Okay.
Well, and now I gotta be careful, because is any of the pool
Fund 80.
funded by Fund 80, Steve?
The whole thing.
The whole thing. What's,
Steve's frozen.
did you hear me, Steve? Stubbs,
He's
you're
not
locked
talking to
here.
I'm sorry, didn't hear you.
Yeah, the question um, is part of the pool funded through Fund 80?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, so then that would mean that we would have to, if somebody wanted to take swimming lessons, if they were a resident of one, if we were to say, we just couldn't limit it to Waunakee Community School District students, we would have to open it up to students who live within the Waunakee School District.
Right, that's correct. That's what we've had to do for programs like the middle school athletics in order to move them into Fund 80.
But we've been letting that happen with our athletic teams anyway, right?
That's
So
correct.
it's not like we're opening up to a new group, it's the same group.
It's the same group, so basically what the difference between what you're saying then, Dave, just for clarity, is allowing the lap swimming for the kids, the staff piece, and also that spring swimming lessons piece to happen this spring, but anything else with regards to the wave or additional swimming lessons, etc., that would take place. Lap swimming, those take place after school is dismissed and through. All right?
And the nice thing is that also gives us these number of weeks for those people to come up with whatever their plan is going to be. Because I assume there's going to be some sort of.
Right.
As we were talking about.
We have a motion on that for the pool, and then we'll bring that to the board on Monday.
So we're looking at a motion to recommend that now. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. And the motion passes.
With that,
And that should take us to the end of the meeting. Mike?
well, I still have another piece.
Oh, good.
Mike, I didn't know how Mike voted on that one.
I might.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, so that's the pool part. The next part is the other piece we'd like to recommend. Because obviously these are all of our youth camps. This is summer, so none of this is spring. So you can see in here, these are all just pieces, but they get their registrations going now. So we need to make sure that they can start to parcel these pieces out. These are all of our kind of youth contact times, all of those things involving our students, our staff.
So this is again, still internal to the
This is
WCSD.
all internal. This is all our students. This is our programs, our staff run them.
Can you stop the table, please?
And then the dollars run through us as a district. So the second part, so this would be kind of the summer piece. We've already dealt with summer for the pool. You've given Christy what she needs there. Outside groups. And Aaron, you and I talked a little bit. I mean, right now, the village rec, the village rec department really runs a lot of programs in the summer for kids. They utilize some of our facilities, such as the
I'm busy right now.
such as like the T-ball at Prairie outside. You have, help me out.
Yeah, so right in the summer, T-ball at Prairie, and then they do some track, I'll call it track camp, at the Heritage Track behind the Heritage Gym. Those are their two biggest uses in the summer months.
Do they utilize anything indoors in the summer?
No, nothing with any high frequency reservations. So nothing that we've ever really had to worry about.
So we'd like to continue that partnership. I think that keeps our kids moving. It's mainly outdoors. And then this driver's ed use summer.
Driver's ed in the past has used classrooms in the summer to offer some summer sessions. They typically use one of our business classrooms at the high school. Looking at that list, a lot of that stuff you might say, well, they're not going to be using it until next year. We typically start building that schedule now for next year. So, but we've been holding on almost everything because we didn't know where we were going to be at with reservations. So I would, ideally for us to do our work, it would be not to get those approvals so we can start working with those groups to know what we can schedule for them and not schedule. Because, for example, in the summer, typically, Jeff Skog and I will sit down and schedule out all the village recs use of our gyms and facilities that go on in the following school year. So that's a pretty large undertaking.
I mean, I don't think there's anything that precludes that for like next school year, but as far as for like summer, that's just kind of what I want to block out, spring and summer. So our spring right now, we're full generally because we've got all of our stuff going with our own activities.
Yeah.
And then when we hit summer, we have our camps.
Yes.
Which you articulated on the previous spreadsheet. And then through conversations you and I had, we talked about village rec and driver's ed.
Driver's ed. Yep.
Is there any other ones that you feel, I mean, it's partially a capacity to support these too.
Yes.
As far as, is there anything else that you would want the board to consider for this spring or summer right now? Otherwise, we would hold on all of these things until we got to really that start of school year time frame, which is August and that period forward.
Yeah, I think right now, from an administrative side of things, just scheduling our own stuff is proving challenging enough. Just introducing village rec and driver's ed is probably what we could handle.
So you're talking summer village rec in our stuff and driver's ed.
Yeah, this would be summer, so this would be the previous spreadsheet, which is all of our camps. The village rec, which is primarily those outside venues, and then driver's ed to keep that program moving. That's an important piece there, kids' transportation, etc. So that's what we would recommend right now, and then hold on the rest of this stuff until really we get into when the start of the fall planning and the fall activities, which is usually like mid-August.
Yeah.
And looking for feedback from the committee as with regards to our thoughts around that.
So I guess I'd give you I would give you the approval for starting the planning for the village rec and the driver's ed and the camps. But isn't the wrestling club, the wrestling, isn't that a summer, is that a summer activity?
No, these are just groups that use our schools. But
Oh,
if you open it up and say, we're gonna open up facilities, you could get requests for many of these because they haven't been able to use them for a while.
And
okay.
I've been fielding requests and just to be able to give them, I don't want to say like an open date, like a date where I can start scheduling things. Because like I said, it's, part of it is just the administrative work to get those things scheduled, finalized, coordinated, and then loaded up into School Dude is a pretty huge task that we do during the summer months. So it is something that we do need to at least consider when we're looking at our planning.
I think if we didn't have any action, Jack, you would get requests from many of these to start using our facilities or to build something in the summer. And we're saying we can't manage that. So we're looking at our camps from the previous spreadsheet, supporting Village Rec this summer, and then the driver's ed program, and the rest of them would wait until we would then support them moving forward in the next school year.
So I'm guessing like the driver's ed and the village rec would have to be under pretty much the same stuff policy wise that we're doing.
Yep.
And that would be part of their being there.
Correct. I mean, we would talk to them about having to meet the certain protocols that meet whatever we need to do for public health. Absolutely. And those will be shipped in, and obviously we'll work with them on that, but they'll have to put a plan together just like anybody else does.
I gotta believe that if they're gonna use the gyms, if that's the policy, then spectator, parents like to stay around and watch their kids, right?
And most of these are all outside. It's T-ball.
Okay.
So it's outside.
Yeah, I mean, I
T-ball,
think really the only one where we'd be seeing them interacting with our summer schools is possibly driver's ed.
Right.
And that's not even there.
No.
Because we don't use that section of the
Then it would
building.
just be all of our camps you saw from the previous, which is all of our students, and those would be required to have a plan for those, how they're gonna operate those camps as well.
One quick question. So in just the previous conversation about the pool, we talked about potentially the wave coming in then in the summer months. But now we're kind of saying all these groups probably have to wait till the beginning of the school year. So where does the wave fit in that conversation? I just want to make sure we're clear, because Christie's the one that helped be fielding those questions.
And I think it's kind of an unknown, because what is our swim lesson delivery gonna be like? How many hours a day are we gonna be offering summer school swimming? So, perhaps to say it's a possibility depending on space for the wave this summer. I mean, they do utilize other facilities the last couple of summers. But if we're not running swimming lessons at 7 or 8 o'clock at night, there would potentially be pool space.
Well, I would submit that we revisit this in May.
Review that part of it in May.
Well, they'll probably have to make their decision before then if they're gonna sell to whoever. But honestly, I don't see where you can make a commitment much before May and say that that's okay. Because if there's some restriction on what we can do, we may have to space our classes out. And to give them a commitment may lock us up.
Why don't we just say right now that until we have a better picture of how we're gonna operate our programs, we won't be able to give them a commitment. That makes sense?
Sure.
And then and Aaron, you're good with the rest of this piece then? So focusing really on village rec for summer and driver's ed,
Yeah.
and then really hold on the rest. We can manage those things, and then obviously we have a lot of things to manage on the other sheet, which are all those camps.
You need a vote on that?
We do need a recommendation, and I'll bring all these on Monday.
Motion to do the camps, village rec, and driver's ed as discussed.
Is there a second? Second.
I'll second.
Okay, there he is. All right, any further questions or discussion?
Can I just clarify, so this is full on saying that all facilities other than the ones that were mentioned in the motion are not gonna be accessible to the public or outside groups until effectively August?
That's generally what it's saying right now, and I think part of what Jack was also saying was that we can revisit some of these in May, less particularly with regards to like the pool. But that's generally what it's stating right now, Mark, yes.
Okay, so I guess my only issue that I have trouble with that is we're saying that like all these outdoor spaces that, I mean, I drive by them all the time and there's nobody on them. We're saying that no one can use outdoor spaces at all until further notice still. That we're just kind of reaffirming that, really.
And I also think that we will be using the outside spaces throughout the summer for all of those camps.
Yeah.
So if you go to like where was I? All these youth camps, some of those are outside, is that right?
Yeah, so
There's football, soccer, track,
baseball,
baseball. Are you wanting us to consider things like, is there youth soccer in the summer?
well, Waunakee Soccer Club does do some summer events. They've traditionally never used our facilities before.
Yeah, they went over to Rip.
Yeah, they will rip where they go to DeLeo. They've not been many
So
requests.
those haven't been a user of ours.
No, now, we do have with the turf soccer field, we do have those smaller fields lines built in, so
Right.
we do have that ability. So that's,
I guess, yeah, so you bring up a good question, Mike, as far as if it's kind of the management of some of those things, if we want to open them up for, let's just use soccer as an example. They do have some of those lines for youth soccer on there. They want to use them this summer. Are we okay with that?
Sure. I mean, where I'm coming from is that I'm fine with that being allowable now because we're talking about something very different from people being right next to each other in a pool versus outdoors, which is something entirely different. And I'll be totally honest, this is one of those things that always is, I worry about the perception as much as I worry about even the reality, because the perception is that the people who want access to these things are getting it already, come hell or high water,
Right.
and they're already on it. And by saying no one gets to use it, everyone already thinks that the people who aren't going to get permission are being excluded by basically what we are doing.
Right.
And the people who want to get on it are going to get on it anyway, and everyone will just kind of look the other way. So I guess unless there is a really, really strong reason to prevent, these groups who are very supportive of our athletics and of our district, of the community and our businesses in the area altogether, I'm really reluctant to just say no when we don't have a good reason to keep saying no going forward. So if there's a good reason, I understand, and I'll back it. But if there isn't a good reason other than, well, we want to wait, I don't know why we'd say no.
Aaron, let me ask you this. When you look at all these different groups, I mean, some of them obviously you could probably fill up gyms if those are open in the summer. But what about the outside facility? I mean, you already have a lot of the youth camps. I mean, which of these groups would you anticipate reaching out to us to use it this summer? In addition to who we've already talked about, the rec and the drivers that we've already talked about, but of these
of
other
the
ones.
groups up there that are gonna reach out to us.
Yeah.
And I'm basing this off of what we've done in the past and what they've used in the past. If it's the outdoor facilities, they're not really gonna be reaching out to us, because youth softball, youth baseball will use the other fields. Same with the Waunakee Area Soccer Club. The groups because what those youth groups want to use our indoor facilities is when the village rec shuts down the fields because it rained for 2 days, 3 days. That's when they come to us and ask for our facilities, to use our indoor spaces. The people that are going to come and ask just on that list is going to be the Swing Basketball Club, the North Star Volleyball Club. Those are people that will still ask.
those will still ask. What about, let's just go to like Mike's point you had. Are we opposed if the soccer club wanted, if they weren't able to play on DeLeo, now they want to play on the turf? Are we opposed to them utilizing that facility in the summer?
Well, no, not in theory, we're not, but I don't know what that actually looks like in practicality, because it's not something we've ever done before, so it's hard to anticipate what that scheduling looks like, I guess.
Okay.
In terms of us trying to manage all of, because we're also gonna be having to build, I'm assuming, safety plans for all of our camps and clinics and getting those approved and run through.
That's right.
And then managing all of that. So that's why I'm hesitant to say, let's bring in a private club or a non-school club that I don't have real direct supervision of, to have them come and do things on our outside fields.
So it doesn't
That's
sound
my
like-
worry about
it-
just bringing the groups in
Yeah.
until we're into a place where we're.
So basically what you're saying is that when these clubs want to come here, they want to use our indoor facilities, they're really not looking for the outdoors facilities other than potentially the turf, which now, we're going to be practicing on it and wearing it out sooner. Anyways, so what you've told us you don't have, you've got the resources for the rec and the driver's ed and beyond that, you're gonna be stretching our resources. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, I think you're gonna be stretching my department's ability to manage the scheduling with that and the oversight of those other parts. I mean, we're scrambling right now just to get, we're basically doing our entire school year season in the span of 5 months. And that's stretching myself, Sue and Jen as far as we can go.
So I would still stand with my initial motion. And if we want, we revisit this as you look at your resources as we get through some of the sporting activities and so forth that we've got. And we come back in May or the next facilities meeting to revisit the rest of this stuff. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we have a motion and a second already. Any further questions, Mike? Then,
No, I guess I've said what I need to say.
okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Okay,
And is that the end of the agenda?
That's the end of the agenda.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
motion adjourned.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, stay here, and sit on the Zoom camera.
Thanks, Mike.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, Mike.